I'm Rob Dansman, and this is The Better Semester, where I provide insight and actionable advice to parents of college students. I'm a nationally certified counselor and licensed clinical mental health counselor. Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's talk about the elephant in the rec room. Yeah, we'll go with that. All right, it's summer. The bags have been dumped in the laundry room. The mini fridge is sitting in the garage. Your kid, your bright, capable, high-achieving kid is home from university. Maybe they're at an Ivy, maybe a top-tier state school in the Big Ten or the UC system. You spent the last decade optimizing their transcripts, curating their extracurriculars, and funding their launch into the American elite. But right now, you're not thinking about their GPA or their summer internship. You're looking at them, and you're feeling that cold, distinct pit of dread in your stomach. Because what you are seeing is not a phase, or is it? How are you supposed to know? You are noticing the drinking, or the weed, or maybe even pills, and it is far beyond what you'd consider typical college partying. They're not at college anymore. They're home. So let's be clear. I know the work hard, play hard ethos that defines high-achieving campuses from the Northeast to the West Coast. We expect a little rebellion, a little partying. We expect the occasional hangover. We have this romanticized with Animal House and old school of higher education where excess is just a rite of passage. But waking and baking on a Tuesday, empty Tito's bottles in their recycling bin, a complete withdrawal from family life, masking behind a locked bedroom door while their bank account bleeds out from DoorDash and dispensary charges, that isn't a rite of passage. It's a distress flare. Today, we are going to tear down the mythology of the college phase. We are going to look at why our young men in particular are drowning themselves in substances. We'll outline the stark clinical differences between a heavy partier and a young adult developing a full-blown substance use disorder. Most importantly, I'm going to give you a robust, evidence-based blueprint. You have them under your roof for the next 90 days or so. We are going to use this summer to run an assessment. What questions do you ask? What behaviors do you track? And how do you know when it's time to stop writing the tuition checks and start looking at therapeutic intervention? All right, let's get into it. Here is the fundamental misunderstanding we have about high-achieving young adults today. We conflate academic pedigree with emotional resilience. We assume that because a kid can crush a calculus exam or secure a spot in a hyper-competitive fraternity, they have a coping mechanism that helps them navigate the modern world. They don't. And the data is screaming at us. We are in the midst of a crisis among young men in particular. Look at that macro environment. We have built an economy and a digital ecosystem that is uniquely hostile to their psychological development. They are looking down the barrel of graduation, staring at a hyper-competitive, structurally unforgiving post-grad job market. The entry-level job is vanishing, replaced by AI or outsourced to the gig economy. They are fed an algorithmic diet of doom scrolling and comparative inadequacy, and a culture that tells them they are simultaneously the problem with society and completely disposable to it. So what happens? The anxiety spikes, the existential dread sets in, and they look for a neurochemical escape hatch, or at least a way to feel a little better. When you see your son consuming massive amounts of high THC cannabis, and let's pause here, the weed today is not the ditch weed of the 1990s. We were talking about 80 to 90% THC concentrations, dabs and vapes that are physically altering brain chemistry and can even induce psychosis. When you see him consuming that or drinking himself to a blackout 3 nights a week, he is not partying. He's coping. He's avoiding. He is self-medicating. No, I'm not really a big fan of that term, but we'll go with it for now. He is trying to turn down the volume on the crippling anxiety of uncertain post-grad prospects. He's trying to numb the imposter syndrome that comes from being a high-achieving student who privately feels entirely unequipped for adulthood. But as parents, we make excuses. We say, well, his friends are doing it, or he goes to a big party school. It's the culture. We engage in what I call optimistic denial. We tell ourselves it's just college. So where is the line? What is the clinical distinction between a heavy partying phase and a budding substance use disorder? In the clinical world, we don't just look at the volume of the substance consumed. We look at the velocity of the consequences and the relationship with the substance. Here are the clinical differentiators you need to understand. Number one, the locus of control. A heavy partier, even a reckless one, can stop when the stakes are high. If they have a massive organic chemistry final on Thursday, the partier stops drinking on Wednesday. The partier can moderate their behavior in response to the external consequences. The student with a substance use disorder cannot. The drug dictates the schedule, not the syllabus. If they are missing high-stakes obligations, failing classes, getting fired from a summer job, missing family weddings because they are high or hungover, the locus of control has shifted from the prefrontal cortex to the addiction. Number two, the evolution of tolerance and withdrawal. This is biology, not morality. Are they needing exponentially more of the substance to achieve the same effect? And more importantly, what happens when they don't have it? A partier wakes up with a hangover, eats a greasy breakfast, goes on with their day. A young man with a dependency wakes up irritable, deeply anxious, sweating, or entirely unable to regulate his emotions until he gets his next hit or drink. The substance is no longer a social lubricant. It is required for baseline functioning. Number three, continued use despite negative consequences. This is the hallmark of addiction. If your kid gets a DUI, or is put on academic probation, or has a massive falling out with their friend group because of their drinking, and the response is to continue drinking or smoking just as heavily, you have crossed the Rubicon. A healthy brain registers a severe negative consequence and alters behavior to avoid it. An addicted brain registers a severe negative consequence and seeks the substance to soothe the pain of the consequence. If you are seeing these markers, you are not dealing with a phase. You are dealing with a pathology. And sending them back to campus in August is the equivalent of sending them to a wood chipper. All right, so what can you do about it? You have them home for the summer. This is your window. You are the CEO of your family. And right now, one of your most valuable assets is in distress. You need a framework. I'm going to give you a robust, detailed, evidence-based blueprint for assessing your college student over the summer months. This isn't about being a helicopter parent. You know how much I don't like those. This is about being a clinically informed, highly engaged safety net. We are going to break this into 3 actionable phases: the audit, the dialogue, and the stress test. All right, phase 1, the audit. What to track? For the first 2 weeks they are home, you are not going to lecture. You are going to observe. You are gathering data. Here are the specific measurable metrics you need to track. Sleep hygiene and circadian rhythm. Are they sleeping until 3 p.m. and staying up till 4 a.m.? A deeply inverted sleep schedule is often the first physical manifestation of heavy substance use, particularly with cannabis and stimulants like Adderall. Track their baseline. The financial burn rate. You need transparency here. If you are funding their bank account, you have a right to see the ledger. Look for cash withdrawals, often used for drugs or buying alcohol or Venmoing people. Exorbitant delivery food charges at odd hours or recurring charges at smoke shops. High-achieving families often throw money at their kids to alleviate their own parental guilt. Stop funding the destruction. Next, the isolation index. Do they leave the house? Do they engage with high school friends, or are they exclusively communicating through a headset in a dark room? Substance use disorders thrive in isolation. If they are self-segregating from the family unit, taking every meal in their bedroom, that is a massive red flag. Okay, next up, emotional volatility and anhedonia. Anhedonia is the clinical term for an inability to feel pleasure in normally pleasurable activities. Do they still care about the things they used to love? If they previously loved playing tennis or going to the lake or talking about their favorite sports team, now they're entirely apathetic, except when they're high. Their dopamine receptors are probably being hijacked. Watch for extreme irritability when you ask simple logistical questions. All right, we're moving on to phase 2 now, the dialogue, how to ask. Once you have the data, you have to initiate the conversation. And here is where most parents fail. They lead with anxiety, which sounds like anger, which triggers defensiveness. If you walk into the room and say, "You're smoking too much weed, you're ruining your life, and I'm not paying for Cornell anymore," the conversation is over before it started. The drawbridge goes right up. Instead, we use an evidence-based clinical framework rooted in something called motivational interviewing. It's a technique designed to elicit behavioral change by helping clients or your children explore and resolve ambivalence. As a parent, you are going to use the OARS model: open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. Here's what it sounds like in practice. Open-ended questions. Do not ask yes or no questions. Don't ask, "Are you smoking today?" Ask, "Help me understand what a typical week looks like for you right now in terms of drinking or smoking. What does it do for you?" Let them tell you the utility of the substance. If they say, "It helps me sleep," or "It helps me stop stressing about my internship," that is the root issue you need to target. Next, reflective listening. When they tell you they are stressed about the job market, you mirror it back. It sounds like the pressure to secure a job after graduation is feeling completely overwhelming right now, and smoking helps you turn off your brain. The pivot? Then you ask the golden clinical question. What are the things you don't like about how much you're drinking or using right now? Force them to articulate the negative consequences themselves. You aren't interrogating them like a hostile witness. As much as it sounds like it, you aren't acting as their therapist either. You are acting as a consultant to their life. You are helping them realize that their current operating system is crashing. Okay, phase 3, the stress test. Boundary setting and contingency management. Observation and conversation are useless without boundaries. This is where the rubber meets the road for high-achieving parents. You have to implement contingency management, an evidence-based behavioral therapy principle that uses incentives and consequences to modify behavior. If your assessment reveals a budding substance issue, you must run a stress test before August. You sit them down and lay out a contract. It sounds like this: "We love you and we want to support your education, but our job as parents is to keep you safe. Based on what we've been seeing, the isolation, the failing grades, the daily substance use, we don't believe you are well enough to return to an unstructured university environment. To write the tuition check for the fall semester, we need to see X, Y, or Z over the next 6 weeks." Okay, so what are the X, Y, and Z that I was talking about? Let's go with X first, or number 1, a complete cessation of use while under the roof. Cessation means stopping. If they literally cannot stop for a month to secure $80,000 in tuition, you have your answer. They are clinically dependent. Okay, number 2, or Y. Letter Y, not the question Y. Engagement in therapy. They must attend a comprehensive psychiatric and substance use evaluation with a licensed clinician and follow through with weekly sessions. Number 3, or letter Z, active participation in life. Holding down his summer job, maintaining a normal sleep schedule, and contributing to the household. These are essential and need to be non-negotiable. If they pass the stress test, great. They might just need some guardrails and outpatient therapy when they return to school. But if they fail, if they sneak around, if they explode in rage, if they simply cannot maintain sobriety and functionality for 6 weeks, then the boundary snaps shut. You do not send them back, as hard as it is for you. Let me be clear about this. The hardest thing you will ever do as a parent of a high-achieving young adult is to stop this train. You have spent their entire life pushing them toward the finish line of a prestigious degree. The cultural pressure in your peer group, your neighborhood, your family to just let them graduate is immense. But let me promise you this. A diploma will not cure a substance use disorder. A degree from Stanford or Michigan or NYU is worthless if your son is emotionally bankrupt, neurochemically dependent, and clinically depressed. If your summer assessment shows a clinical issue, if they fail the stress test, they cannot safely return to university life. It is malpractice as a parent to put a struggling kid back into a high-stress, low-structure environment where drugs and alcohol are the primary coping mechanisms. You have to pull them out. You have to take a medical leave of absence, and you have to pivot to treatment. Check out my episodes and articles about how to execute that medical leave. If you are listening to this and your gut is telling you that your kid is in trouble, do not wait until August when the tuition check is cleared and they are 500 miles away. Okay, that's it for today. If you found this episode helpful, please like it, subscribe, and give it a thumbs up. You can also pass it along to a friend. Both help me share my actionable insights about college student behavioral health. For even more information, check out my 2 books on Amazon, my Psychology Today Campus Crunch column, or go to my website, robdansman.com. Before you head off, I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in today. All of the resources discussed are in the show notes below. And one last thing, if you know anyone that would benefit from this episode, please forward it along to them. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to my podcast, the YouTube channel, and the newsletter. All right, see you all next time.